This is Jason Bochniak and Bob McAreavey. Both of these gentlemen are multiple winners of our modified Harley class. And we've talked a little bit about the purpose of the Harley class to kind of bridge that gap between stock motorcycles and the freestyle motorcycles because of the lower cost of entry. But also, a lot of people can't afford to have multiple bikes these days. You know, you have one bike, you want to have a custom bike, but it's got to be a bike that you can ride too. Hence, that's been the popularity of a lot of baggers. So both these gentlemen ride their bikes, and I'll let them tell you about their own bikes and how many miles they put on. But they do go through a lot of trouble to keep them clean and maintained and have a show quality bike, where I think, Jason, you have 40,000 miles on yours?
20,000 on mine.
20,000. And Bob has 40. So you always hear the story, well, that's a nice bike, but they don't ride those bikes. Well, that's not true. You know, they spend a lot of time, not only in the initial builds, but they also spend time in maintaining and keeping them clean. So let's start off a little bit. Let's start off with Bob. You won at the Cleveland show?
Cleveland and Chicago.
Cleveland and Chicago. And he first came in, he wasn't even sure about entering, if I remember correctly. And we kind of explained to him, just like we did today, of this, what we're trying to do with the modified Harley class. And there is some other nice little things. We are supported by the international motorcycle shows and Harley Davidson. So if you win the modified Harley class, you get $3,000 in cash, plus you also get a race tuner and a Harley travel bag that's kind of like a suitcase type of deal. Very nice thing. So there's some nice prizes involved for winning.
First of all, I got the bike just for myself. It's pretty much a stock Harley. I always looked around at these shows and seen some really nice bikes. Always wish, man, I could build something like that. It'd be really cool. I started with an 01 Fat Boy. I bought it off the showroom floor. It kind of, over the years, I tore it down to the frame, morphed it out, then it changed in every couple of years, and it's kind of the bike it is now today. It's still a Fat Boy, basically. Wide tire kit, got a 124 in it now for a motor, little custom paint job, wheels, the normal stuff you see on the custom bikes. But like I said, I didn't do it all at once. It was over time. So that's about it.
Now Bob has that orange Fat Boy with the blackout look, and if you go and take a look at that, what you'll notice is there is a theme to it. When we're looking at these bikes, we do look at the paint, but the paint doesn't count the highest value. We look at the chrome, or in his case, he has no chrome on it. It's all blacked out, but it's a consistent blackout look. It's not a mixture of chrome and black, so there's a nice impact. And when we're judging these, the biggest thing we're looking at is what is the overall impact of the bike. So when you stand 10 to 12 feet back and you take a look at this bike, it has to sing to you. It has to say something that really shows that this is a bike that kind of stands out. So you really want to pay attention when you're walking around and looking at these bikes, and have a thought in mind. What kind of look do you want? Do you want the blackout? On the other hand, we have Jason's bike, which besides the fantastic engine modifications he has, there is a lot of chrome. Now you can't go by Jason's without wearing your sunglasses because it's so bright.
You know, just like you said, Bob, I had a very low budget when I first bought my bike. I bought the bike in June of 2006, and it was a Softail Deluxe. Saw this bike and said, I've got to have it. And then, you know, when you go into the store for the Harley Davidson shop, you don't know which way to go. You don't know whether to go Skulls, Live to Ride, or what kind of part you want to go with. So I just went to different bike events and started seeing that there was stuff outside of the Harley Davidson catalog along with the Harley Davidson catalog. So I did like the clip-on chrome. I did all the little trinkets that I could do within my budget. And then as I started thinking more about what was going to really set this bike apart, because I wanted to be something that nobody had, I went into the motor and just said I really need to do a motor that's going to be out of control, because we had little cliques of guys that would, you know, go fast light to light, or, you know, show off what they could do with their motor. So I went in and started from the ground up, and started with nitrous oxide first, and thought that was going to be the best way to go. So I did a Zippers dry nitrous system on there, and had a stock bottom end, and I got, you know, 120 horse out of that. Thought that was really good. And then some things happened in 2008. We had to rebuild the bike. bike. I had a small accident with the bike, and when we had the accident, I figured this would be a great time to chrome the frame and go a different direction with the bike. So what I did was looked at the supercharged field and went to the Pro Charger guys with that, and fortified the bottom end, dark horse crank, dark horse rods, Weisco piston, brought T-Man in, and just built one hell of a motor. The motor is well fortified, and it can take all that can come out of there. And then as things progress, that's when the whole disease really starts, because then you start doing a little bit of chrome on the frame, and you do a little bit of chrome here. I wanted to identify with one component or one dealer of parts that I could do the whole bike with, and I picked Ricky Battistini. I went with all Battistini running boards, all of his controls, all of his covers, because I wanted to have, just like you said, Bob, I wanted to have that unity across the whole bike with all the parts. So I was real happy to have his products on there. And then there were some mounts and stuff that we had to make out of polished aluminum. The Pro Charger and everything's polished aluminum, and with the chrome, if you polish long enough and hard enough, it looks like chrome. So that's where we went with the bikes.
Now you will also see there's a pan head out there that's in an old stock rigid frame. We have a later model swing arm bike with a hardtail welded and attached to it. We have a soft tail bobber. We have a couple baggers in there. So even within the guidelines of the modified Harley class, there is a lot of variation you can do. Now the reason I picked these two gentlemen is because while they're basic soft tail motorcycles, it's totally two different approaches. So when you get the time, you should walk and look. Bob has gone with PM pretty much. He's got PM wheels, PM controls, so they're all nice components, and that gives them a good consistent look. But you need to remember, when you're going through this, especially when you're starting the first time, something's going to catch your eye, and then maybe a year down the road, because these projects do take time before you get them to the point where you want to show them, you may change your mind. Well, that's all right. That's what Craigslist and eBay is for. You know, there's all kinds of great deals there all the time, and don't be afraid to use that. You can also, buy some. If you're changing your mind and getting on there, sometimes you'll find something, and you can look on Craigslist and eBay. So it's a great tool out there for you, and it's whether you're buying a part to bolt on or you're making a part. When it comes to custom bike building, trust me, it doesn't just all fall together. You can spend 10 years designing the bike in your head. You can look all the studying, hours and nights and days on the internet, reading the books, talking with people, but when it actually comes down to do it, you're going to come into some of the realities. Some of the things aren't going to fit quite the way they expected. You're going to have a belt drive from one manufacturer and a cover from another manufacturer, and you're either going to have to modify it because they didn't work off the same specs, or you're just going to have something you bought, and then once it's on, it doesn't look the same way as it did in the catalog. So don't let that discourage you. What you need to understand is the joy or the passion of custom bike building, just like the joy of riding. If you're riding and you hit the rain, you don't enjoy it any less. You put your rain suit on, but you keep riding. It's that riding, that passion that you enjoy, that keeps you, gets all the troubles out of your head, gets you free, and keeps you riding. Well, it's the same thing with bike building. There's many nights I couldn't sleep. 3 o'clock in the morning I get up, I go out in the barn, and I'm just looking at parts. And I can promise you, these gentlemen have done that too. So that kind of dedication that it takes to do that, that's part of the joy. And then when you get it right, there is no greater satisfaction. When you've changed your parts or modified them or built them and put them together, and you walk back and you look and you're sitting at it, there's such a joy, and that's when you're ready to bring it in and compete in one of these shows. And what you're going to find, and I'll let them tell you some of their own stories, is you're going to find that, well, maybe somebody says something, so then you want to change again. So it's a constant ongoing process, the building of motorcycles. And again, this modified Harley class is just a great starting point. Jason has been fairly successful this year, as is Bob, and Jason's already talking about either doing another modified Harley or going off into the freestyle class. Now, freestyle is where you're only limited by your imagination, your skill set, and your pocketbook. So if you can dream it and put it together, but the complexity and that whole process we just talked about, doing and redoing and reinventing, is multiplied by 10. So the factor there. So again, this is why this modified Harley class is so important, and it's a lot of fun, and it's a bike you can ride. A lot of the freestyle bikes, even though they are rideable, you're not going to have as much fun around with them because of their configuration. So why don't we talk about some of the changes that you've made, Bob, as you went along with your bike?
Well, like I said, I kept with the PM theme. I wanted something that was rideable, still along the Harley frame, and like I said, I ride it. It's got 44,000 miles on it, and I'm from Cleveland, so that's a lot of riding. I wanted something I could ride every day, get on, start, and go, so I didn't want to change, get anything real crazy, and I wanted something that was my own. I mean, you can bolt on new wheels. Okay, it's a Fat Boy with wheels. Yeah, you can do this and do that. So it just took some time, and then finally you get something that's your own. You can say that's mine, that's me, and everybody looks at that and say, hey, that book, that's you. I say, yeah, that's me because I built it. I mean, I put it together. Granted, I'm not the big builder or whatever, but I can do this in my garage. Anybody can do in their garage. Is in a 10 by 10 garage what I did this in. It was a barn, as a matter of fact. So it's like anybody can do it. Yeah, I don't do tanks, I don't do fenders, but there's so much stuff out there. There's so many people to help, and the more you get out there, the more people you'll find that'll help you, and you meet guys like Bob and Jason that you get friendships out of it. There's so much in this whole thing. It's not about just building the bike. It's everything that's involved in it. It's a really cool thing.
Well, the camaraderie of builders is really fantastic, as Bob mentioned. And a lot of the big, long-time builders, Dave Perowitz, Donnie Smith, Arlen Ness, while they're good friends, they run businesses. And if you buy one of their parts and you want to apply that, you can always call them for help, and you can talk to these guys at shows, and you'll find that as long as you've done your research and you're not just talking for the sake of talking, any of these builders, from new builders coming out like Bob and Jason to the longtime favorites like Donnie and Arlen, they'd be more than happy to help you with their projects. Now, I know Jason has spent a lot of time with people, and he's gone through a lot of changes, so why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, just like you talked about, the camaraderie is amazing. I mean, I've made friends with you, Bob, Jeff, George, and a lot of the builders. I've gotten tremendous ideas, and just like with my motorcycle, everything's bolt-on, and like Bob was saying, I went through 4 different varieties of that bike, literally purchased all the parts and everything, and to get to where I'm at right now. And I went to, I can't tell you how many swap meets to sell off the parts that I bought that didn't go the way I thought I wanted them to go, or I would have something and see somebody had the exact same thing. So just like you said, it's just so many different things you run around in your head, and then but there's a way to have something that somebody else has, but to maybe modify it a little bit within your means of modifying it. You don't have to be a mechanic or a machinist, and a lot of times a lot of the parts didn't fit right all the way. You had to do a little bit of something to make it work, or like on my bike, I got an 84 FL chain guard that we cut down and had re-chromed, and I've got it on an 06 Softail, and it's the perfect combination to cover up the chain that I did for the conversion. So if anybody's out there looking to do any kind of modification at all on a Harley Davidson, and you don't have a huge budget and you're not a whiz with the machinery, the catalogs and the different parts that are out there, it's endless what you can do to customize your bike and make it. And then the pride of coming here and seeing how people react to your invention, your creation, is really gratifying. It really makes it all whole.
Right from when you buy that stock bike and you just put a handlebar bag on it or change the grips or something, you've already begun the process. The next step is the modified Harley class. We are promoting it this weekend at the U.S. Championship. The prizes for the modified Harley class are $6,000 for first place, and Harley Davidson themselves is throwing in a 120-inch Screaming Eagle engine. So it can be rewarding too, but the biggest reward is to be able to take this bike and personalize it. And when you're riding around, and there's no greater feeling when somebody comes up to you and say, man, that ride is cool, and you know that you've done it and you put your sweat and tears into it. So you can also go to www.motorcycleshows.com if in the future you want to enter. We run 12 shows across the country, from Los Angeles to Seattle over to Washington, ending up here in Daytona. So thank you for spending a few minutes with us this afternoon, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the show. Thanks.
Thanks, Bob.